As we welcome in week 6 of the NFL season, it is still very, very important that you nail your lineup decision. So today, 18 different players will be discussing on whether you should be starting or sitting them this week. Fellas, we'll start at the top with the running backs, just as we always do. Work our way down to some quarterback and tight end streamers at the end of the show. But Cameron, we're going to kick things off. Running back start of the week. Corey Krosky-Merritt, Washington Commanders running back against the Chicago Bears, coming off of a breakout week and gets a juicy matchup to follow it up.
Yeah, obviously, running back 5 last week, 28 PPR fantasy points. If you started him, you're feeling good. This is the push to keep starting him because it was more than just fantasy points last week. We saw him double or essentially have the same amount of snaps as Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols combined. He was the only running back with over 5 carries, had 14 of them. He ran, almost 50% of routes. And the dude is currently getting a ridiculous 6.6 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I mean, just absurd efficiency. And honestly, I feel like that can stay because he's doing that without Jaden Daniels in the offense. You had Jaden Daniels back there, doing
like fully healthy. He was
fully
healthy.
Exactly.
He was playing last week, but fully healthy.
Yes.
I get what you're saying.
Where he's actually mobile, getting 10 attempts himself. Defenses have a split attention, right? They're doing the read option. You don't know which way he's going. And really for me, what the other part that's exciting is he dominated early down work. We've seen that before, but he had the majority of goal line and short yardage carries as well. And what we saw, the reason that Brian Robinson was effective at all last year was because he got those goal line carries. So now if Bill is getting those goal line carries, we could see efficiency plus work plus touchdowns, which is great success or great success. But just great to see for a running back. I'm gonna stop talking. I've explained.
We need the Borat sound. Great success.
Gosh, we need to get that on the soundboard. The Borat sound. Here's what I'll say about Corey Krosky-Merritt. The efficiency, I think, is the most important thing here, Cameron, because over his 6.5 yards per carry is nothing short of incredible, and we knew that, right? We knew that JCM was going to have the most burst after they got rid of Brian Robinson Jr. and even with Brian Robinson Jr., it's not like he had a ton of burst either. Ty, my concern is we do see that efficiency come down, but in my mind, the volume is still going to more than make up for it if we do start to see him overtake Chris Rodriguez for the bulk and majority of snaps in this backfield.
I would agree. I also think, though, that because we do get the high-value touches on the goal line, though, that if we were to see a drop in efficiency, the high value touches would kind of cancel that out. So you won't feel, you won't feel that too harshly, I should say. So I would agree. As long as we continue to see Bill take a stranglehold of this backfield, he's going to remain a startable piece.
Before we move on to the rest of the running back starts, sits, and the likes, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and turn on that notification bell as well so you know when our newest content is up, so you know when we go live on Sunday before kickoff to answer all your start sit questions as well. We're three dudes, yes, sharing our fantasy football insights with you all that we're using to beat each other, to beat our friends in fantasy football, but really, we do this because fantasy football generates a ton of camaraderie, right? It brings us together. We all enjoy it. We can laugh while making content together because Cameron can't spit out great success. So if you want to laugh along with us as well while getting some fantasy football insights along the way, this is the place you are going to want to be. I'll kick it over to you for your running back start of the week. Same matchup, other side of the football, DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift, I'll be honest, it feels like every fringe starter this week has some kind of downside that worries me too much. So I'm going to just play it safe and give a vote of confidence to DeAndre Swift. Coming off of the bye week, he's running back 19 in usage on a per game basis. He gets Washington, like you said. They're allowing the 10th most rushing yards per game in the last 4 games. And he's also top 10 in target share. So even if Chicago is chasing points in this game, Swift is going to remain in the passing game. So, like I said, I'm playing it safe. I'm not trying to hit a home run here. I'm really just trying to hit a single, and maybe I can stretch it out into a double, and I'll just, hey, if it turns into a home run, you're not going to hear me complaining.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at DeAndre Swift this week, because I do think, Cameron, there's a possibility Kyle Monangai gets more involved out of the bye week, but at the same time, I'm not as strong of a believer in Kyle Monangai that he's just going to like entirely obliterate DeAndre Swift's value. Like, I think if anything, DeAndre Swift just becomes like a forever RB 22 to 26. But this week, especially against the Commanders, I think DeAndre Swift is a great plug and play RB2.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate it. I think the biggest worry season long for Swift is a trade for another running back. Like you said,
Yeah.
Kyle Monangai, I don't think is going to be good enough where you're going, shoot, he's getting 15 carries a game. I think maybe he'll get 8 and Swift's still sitting around that 13, 14. So I think that's probably the worst that we're going to see coming out of the bye, and I still don't even expect that. And really, if there's any game for Swift to kind of reinvigorate himself, because coming after the bye against the Commanders. So I definitely don't hate him as a start.
Yeah, I had brought him up in a video on our Shorts channel of like, hey, this is like a sneaky, probably like you could probably get DeAndre Swift for 80 cents on the dollar of what his value will be rest of season right now, because the matchups coming out of the bye are just absolutely incredible for the Chicago Bears rushing attack. So I think DeAndre Swift could, like you said, Cameron, reignite some value into his fantasy outlook after this week. I'm just going to keep it short, simple, and sweet. If you have Rico Dowdle on your team, you just fire him up. And I know this is somewhat low-hanging fruit, but it was all Rico Dowdle against the Miami Dolphins last week. 234 total yards, 208 of those on the ground, ripped off multiple 40-plus yard rushes, and you sprinkle in a touchdown on top of that as well. Chuba is likely going to sit out this week. We're recording this on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central Time. So the only news we have is that, hey, Chuba didn't practice on Wednesday. Okay, that's all we're going off of here. But considering he has a calf strain, those typically take multiple weeks to recover from. So my guess is that Chuba is going to be out again this week, and Rico Dowdle now gets an almost equally bad Dallas Cowboys defense that's given up the 6th most fantasy points per game to running backs this year. Like, this is one, just don't make it difficult. If you have Rico Dowdle, you literally start him as your running back too, because he's easily a top 15 play in my mind if Chuba Hubbard is out.
Yeah, he showed last week, hey, if Hubbard's out, right, I fit kind of right into the role. And obviously last week he did better than Hubbard's done the entire season.
There's no Trevor Etienne involved either. It's Rico Dowdle. That's it.
Yes. And after last week, that completely cemented it. There is no worry going into this next week. My only concern is Dallas's offense is looking better and better. Is just maybe he doesn't see the rushing work you'd like him to see, right? He doesn't get 23 attempts. But they were down 17-0 in that last game, and he still got 23 attempts. So they know we can't just rely on Bryce Young. We have to play our game, really, no matter what the score is, and hope that that's enough to bring us back in. So, yeah, as long as Chuba's out, I really like Rico as a start.
Ty, anything you want to sprinkle in on top of that here? Again, I think if Chuba Hubbard is indeed out, Rico Dowdle is like the easiest start of the week.
Yeah, I maybe I'll look at it from the lens of if Chuba Hubbard plays, what do you do with Rico Dowdle? Obviously, you can't start him, but I wouldn't be surprised I wouldn't be surprised though if he stays more involved in neutral game scripts, because most of his work against New England and Atlanta was coming in garbage time when they were down or they were up big. I think because what he showed was a bit of explosiveness that Chuba Hubbard has not shown in really the year in 2 games and 3 games that he has been the starter. So Rico has potential to kind of stay involved where he has maybe some standalone value rather than just a pure handcuff. But again, if Chuba Hubbard plays, you probably can't trust Rico Dowdle in your lineups at all.
Correct. This is very similar to my Rachaad White start of the week last week, which panned out all right. It was if Bucky Irving didn't play, you fire up Rachaad White. If Chuba Hubbard doesn't play, you absolutely fire up Rico Dowdle again this week. Let's move on to running back sits. Cameron, we talked about Chase Brown being a sit last week. Even with the addition of Joe Flacco, still not interested in Chase Brown. Doesn't do anything for you.
No, Ty and I talked about it a little bit on last week's episode. I just want to remind you, Joe Flacco is not Joe Flacco of a couple of years ago when he led the Browns to the playoffs. Joe Flacco is the Joe Flacco that led the Browns to 16, 17, 13, and 10 points in their first 4 games. Right? This isn't all of a sudden going to be magic where they're scoring a whole bunch of points. Yes, he'll chuck the ball. Yes, he'll throw it down the field. But it hasn't turned out to anything. Obviously, we said this last time. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, significantly better than Jerry Jeudy, injured Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, Harold Fannin, Isaiah Bond. But I'm not expecting much to change for Chase Brown. He has 65 carries on the year. He doesn't have a single carry over 10 yards right now. He's averaging under 3 yards per carry. And this offensive line did not get better because Joe Flacco came. Like, at the end of the day, that's what happens. And we saw him get the receiving work in this last game. He had 7 receptions, and he still had under 9 half PPR fantasy points. I mean, we saw it. It was still abysmal. So I'm not banking on him scoring a touchdown. And if he doesn't get a touchdown, I'm just not interested because they can sell it on the run and make him beat him with the pass. And I just don't think Joe Flacco is going to be that guy to do that.
So 2 things I want to ask out of this, because I do think the Joe Flacco piece of this is worth discussing in regards to Chase Brown's value against the Packers this week. And Ty, I'll come to you with this first. Like Cam said, we did get 7 receptions for Chase Brown last week. What are the odds that continues? Because we did see that with Dylan Sampson in week 1. Could we get, if you're in PPR formats, could you just get a complete PPR cheat code where you're going to get 7 free points, 6 free points most weeks because it's just checkdowns on checkdowns to Chase Brown? And then unfortunately you have to literally pray for the rushing work. Like, does that add any more interest for you if that's the case in PPR formats?
I mean, it makes him more considerable as a flex play then, because again, like you said, he could just kind of PPR scheme. He is top 10 in target share as well at the position. So there is the potential that he can have those weeks like we saw last week, but that's all that it is. Like, keep the perspective of this. The rushing production is not good enough to elevate him into being a running back 2 for your team. So you are banking on 5+ catches that are downfield enough, or that he can make something happen after the catch to not just be a stat line of like 6 catches for 22 yards. That, like, you do need the yards on top of it. So sure, it does make him a little more. It makes you think about him a little bit more, but I would still say that, like, it's not really worth the risk, because the ultimate question is, like, what's the upside? Does he find the end zone on a on a long screen pass? Like, sure, but I'm gonna look at this matchup against Green Bay and go, I'm gonna say that's not very likely.
The other thought I have around Joe Flacco specifically, and then Cameron, I'll let you close out with any thoughts you have before we move on to Ty's sit of the week. Not only is the Bengals offensive line just really, really bad, Joe Flacco is significantly less mobile than Jake Browning. It's not like Jake Browning was a mobile guy whatsoever, but it's not like you're seeing Joe Flacco run a ton of play action from under center. If the pocket closes in on him, Joe Flacco isn't going to be able to roll out and create as effectively as Jake Browning is going. And not that Chase Brown was creating effectively by any means, but the ability to extend plays, to find a Chase Brown in the flats, to hit a Jamar Chase down deep. Again, talking more generally Joe Flacco here, but to me, that's also a little bit of a concern of, I don't know if Joe Flacco necessarily makes this offense as more functional as we're potentially making it out to be.
Yeah, now that's kind of where I'm at with all the Bengals players is, could this just be a big trap where the Bengals are like, hey, we made a move, but we still want the first overall pick, so we're not actually trying to win the games. That's why we got Flacco instead of getting a Jameis or something like that in the building.
We're just trying to stay competitive in the division because the division is winnable right now.
And so I don't know. I'm worried that it could be really bad, and the Packers are not a good matchup, especially coming off a bye, where they're going to be well rested. Right, Micah's going to probably be full go in this one. So yeah, I think it could be a really, really bad beatdown where you are just hoping, for 7 PPR fantasy points, and even, coming off receptions. And like I said, even in PPR formats, he was a running back 24 last week with 7 receptions.
Yeah.
Like, that's really bad to get 7 receptions and still be the running back 24 and not even hit 12 PPR fantasy points.
Not great, Bob. Not great. I'll pocket some of the Bengals offense discussion because we will talk about them a little bit more later. Ty, we'll move on to your running back sit of the week. I'm going to just keep it a buck with you up front. There's no way I'm sitting the big dog under no circumstance, no matter how bad he's been. I will not do it.
So, fellas, I need you to repeat after me. If you have the luxury.
Oh, the luxury. Oh,
don't think I could.
I whatever. Go ahead. Plead your case. Plead your case. I'll rebuttal afterwards. But go ahead. Tell people why if they have the luxury, they can sit Derrick Henry.
Because what is the upside in a game against the Rams where it could be very similar to what we saw against Houston, where Baltimore struggles on offense because of a beat up defense. They allow a ton of points. And when that happens, what happens to Derrick Henry?
Poof.
Exactly. So
he disappears. That's what poof.
He disappears. So if your optimist, like glass half full argument is, well, what if he finds the end zone like he did against Houston? Sure. But
he's
guess
the big
what?
dog.
But guess what? That was still good for the running back 25, and that was less than 10 half PPR points. So because of the threat of a game script that goes against Derrick Henry yet again, on the chance that we don't find the end zone because we can't get the ball down there, because I'm just going to say Houston's defense is very good. The Rams are not as good, but they are still a good unit on defense that can take advantage of Cooper Rush at quarterback. Again, I know you're not a fan of using if you have the luxury cop out, but you have to understand that the chance that we get the 20+ point Derrick Henry is like at like 20%, if that.
That's not what I'm swinging for with Derrick Henry anymore, though. I've accepted that. I've accepted that. The problem is I can't go down swinging trying to be right that Derrick Henry is going to fail without him literally spitting in my face and kicking dirt on me in the process. Like, this feels like a scenario to me where if I tell someone to sit Derrick Henry, I'm just going to end up looking stupid afterwards. So maybe I'll say it like this, Ty. You just have, and I don't know where Cameron's at. Maybe I'll just make a generalized statement here. You definitely carry the biggest cojones out of the three of us, because for me, I can't get there. If Derrick Henry hits pay dirt, there's easily a chance where he finishes as a top 24 running back on the week and finishes as a running back too. That's just, I'm willing to make that bet that he finds the end zone, because when they get around the goal line, it's going to be Derrick Henry if Lamar Jackson isn't in the lineup. So that's me. I think Derrick Henry has a high probability of scoring a touchdown. Therefore, I just can't, in my right mind, sit him. I don't know where you're at, Cameron, but that's where I'm at.
I can't either. I couldn't do it. I could not look at him on my bench. He had 65% of snaps, even though you're getting blown out last week. Still had 15 carries because they have to. They don't have another choice with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So that's where it comes off. And if you want to talk about, I understand he's older, hasn't looked as good, but if you're going to talk about any running back who could see a stack box and break one for 60+ yards, it's this guy right here. So yeah. I personally, I couldn't sit him. I understand what you're saying I think the Rams are just going to play to take him away and say, Cooper Rush, if you want to try and beat us, go ahead.
That's what they should do.
But I just don't think I could.
Lucas, you just made a video the other day for teams that are 1-4, 0-5. I'm going to make the general statement that those teams do have a Derrick Henry on their team.
Sure, probably.
What do they need to prioritize?
Well, they do need to. Okay, so you have me on this one. They need to prioritize matchups over projections. So, but that's not. I see where you're getting at with this. I see where you're getting. I get it.
Because yes, Derrick Henry can be the exception to that matchup over prediction or projections like rule. But for a Rams defense that has not allowed a single rushing touchdown this year, that are allowing just 3.5 yards per carry, which is bottom 3 in the league, to me, it doesn't matter that you're Derrick Henry. The matchup has said the Rams are taking away the run. They are shutting down opposing running backs. So, yes, maybe I do, like you said, I have the bigger cojones to say that you should bench, that you should sit Derrick Henry. I would if I have the luxury to, because I will also, because you used the example a couple weeks ago, like if your running back 3 is RJ Harvey, Derrick Henry is your running back 2, you have to play Derrick Henry.
Right.
But honestly, like if it's between Chase Brown and Derrick Henry, that's a decision that I have to make, and I think it's closer than people think.
So you're saying if Chuba Hubbard doesn't play this week, you have our team. You're playing Rico Dowdle?
I'm playing Rico Dowdle.
I think that's where the line is. I shouldn't say the line is for me specifically, but like that's what you're considering if you're sitting Derrick Henry. It's the Rico Dowdle or Rachaad White that you picked up. Because I don't know if I could look at my bench and be like, I have that much more confident in them than Derrick Henry. It has to be like the smash match. Corey Krosky Merritt. There's another one. Corey Krosky Merritt or Derrick Henry.
I'd play Bill.
Henry.
You just say that again? Cameron's going Derrick Henry. I didn't hear what you said.
I would play Bill.
Okay, let us know down in the comments what you're doing with Derrick Henry this week. Let us know down in the comments what you're doing with Derrick Henry. Because I think a lot of people are asking this question, though, Ty. Like, you're raising the right question. People in the comments might just have the larger cojones than Cameron and I are willing to. I just can't look at the big dog in the face and say, hey, no, absolutely not, and have him break off a 75-yard touchdown this week. Because I just know that's going to happen deep in my spirit. Let's move on. I'll move on to my running back sit of the week. Another older running back. How about Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints? This is just not the same Alvin Kamara from years past, unfortunately. It makes me really sad as someone who's been pro Alvin Kamara all these years. We talked about it, Ty, on our Monday trending or ending episode, but he's just not getting that same bloated usage in the receiving game. It's not the receiving game usage is gone. It's just not bloated like it's been in years past. And Kendra Miller is now a factor. More rush attempts than Alvin Kamara last week. He's been really, really good after contact this year. So if Kamara isn't getting this extra support in PPR formats, it is getting less rush attempts moving forward than Kendra Miller. I don't think that's how it pans out every week, but are we looking at like 10 rush attempts for Kamara each week and 10 for Kendra Miller? Like, so I'm still not a fan of that. I just get less interested, especially against a Patriots defense this week specifically, that is bottom 5 in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs. I mean, they literally just held James Cook to 49 yards on 15 totes on Sunday night. So I don't know, man. Not very interested in Alvin Kamara. He is like the fringiest of all fringe flex plays this week. And I'm worried that's best case scenario.
Yeah, I unfortunately have to agree with you because I don't feel like I could say sit Chase Brown and not say sit Alvin Kamara because
Totally.
they're just in similar situations,
similar boats.
except Kendra Miller is on the Saints, right? And Chase Brown doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I've got three leagues where I have him in, and I'm starting him in all three, but that's because I have to, right? I mean, I don't have a choice at this point whether I'm starting Alvin Kamara because I said at the beginning of our last episode, almost a third of all players taken in the top 50 in drafts are missed multiple games or on IR right now. So you might be in a position where you have to. I don't think he's going to like give you a goose egg or anything, but his ceiling of maybe 12 PPR points is just not great.
Would you play a guy like Hassan Haskins or Kamani Vidal?
No.
Over an Alvin Kamara this week? Would you get that gross?
I'm not there yet. No.
I don't think it can be just an outright no. I think that there's a reason behind that, and that's because we don't know exactly how that backfield will play out. If we knew, like if this was Arizona's backfield, right, and we knew that Michael Carter was more than likely going to be the guy to kind of take the bulk of the work,
sure,
then it would be different. But because we really don't know, and that it was kind of a 50-50 split between Haskins and Vidal after Hampton left with an injury, I would say the jury is out. I would probably still lean Kamara on the chance that he finds the end zone, but the matchup is just not there either.
I'm just trying to get a gauge of like how gross the people should actually get with this, right? Because I don't know if I'm there yet either. I think I would still rather play Alvin Kamara, but like some people might be looking at their lineups and it's like, yeah, I don't have James Conner on my team anymore, and I was lucky to get Hassan Haskins off of waivers this week, and Alvin Kamara is my running back too. So that, like, I get it. As someone who drafted Chase Brown, James Conner, RJ Harvey, Bashal Tutin as like my top 4 running backs, I get it. I feel you all where I'm like, I'm lucky I got Michael Carter, and I'm lucky I got Hassan Haskins off of waivers this week. Otherwise, I would be swimming at the running back. I wouldn't even be swimming. I'd be drowning because I literally have no running backs to support my team whatsoever. So I get it. To me, though, I think you do probably have at least 2 or 3 other options on your bench. 2 or 3. You have a handful of other options, is my guess, where you can flex Alvin Kamara. Or you could flex them over Alvin Kamara, this week. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Let's move it on to the wide receiver position. Now we'll start with the starts. Cameron, look, on me, Alec Ayomanor, I thought he was going to be the start of the week for Tennessee last week. Just so happens that Calvin Ridley decided to remind everybody, hey, I'm not actually bad at football anymore. I'm still good at this thing. And he and Cam Moore connected on a few very nice plays last week.
Yeah, I feel like he needs some decent cojones to make this start as well. I'll be honest, because this could definitely be what you said with Ayomanor last week could be this way with Ridley this week.
Totally.
I understand that because, I mean, it's a good match. Raiders are giving up the 4th most yards to the wide receiver position, 5th most touchdowns, and 3rd most receptions. But for me, the reason I'm trusting in Ridley is because he still is top 25 in wide receiver targets, right? He's still getting volume. He's only had 1 game with less than 6, 7, 8, and 10 in his other 3 games. So Cam Ward's looking for him, and we finally saw them connect on some down the field passes. He's seeing 18 yards per reception right now. So a 50% catch rate isn't that terrible if you're getting 8 to 10 targets. I understand it's a little bit scary. I understand he doesn't have any touchdowns. But if there is a team that they're going to score touchdowns against, I do think it's this Vegas Raiders team. And so I'm trusting in him as a wide receiver 3, right? I'm not forcing him in if you got other players, but I think if you're at the point where I am, again, in one of my leagues, and I'm making the decision right now between him and, surprise, one of my sits later, who I'll get to, I'm choosing Calvin Ridley in that situation.
The process on this is entirely correct, right? Good performance last week. Great matchup to play. The problem is, Ty, I think Cam Ward is the biggest wild card in all this. What Cam Ward are we going to get? Who's he going to want to target this? I mean, seriously, that's the wild card here. And it's basically, how much do you want to put your faith in Cam Ward, it feels like, if you're going to start Calvin Ridley?
Well, and it's really just the whole Titans team in general, because I don't think anybody expected them to come back to Arizona. And
no, they did not come back against Arizona. Arizona flat out lost that football game.
Correct.
Don't give the Titans credit for winning that game. They did not win that football game.
But it's exactly that point, though. You get what I'm saying? Like,
no, I get it.
Dynasty hasn't really.
I mean, they did beat the Cardinals last week, like a comeback win, even though they literally did not come back and win. The Cardinals literally said, "You want 10 free points to win this game? You can have them. 14 free points to win them." Yeah, right. It's Alex Pereira, right?
So at least with Ridley last week, like we saw the snaps come back, because it was the week before that he kind of he regressed to the wide receiver 3 role in terms of snaps and routes. He came back as a wide receiver 2 this week. So if we continue that trend in snaps where we're going to be on the field in 2 receiver sets, then Calvin Ridley, I think, is at least a little more considerable. I don't know if I would have because like you said, it feels like everything with Tennessee is such a wild card at the moment that I don't know if it's necessarily something that I would feel comfortable with in my lineup, but I understand it.
Let's I'm curious to hear your thoughts on your start here, Ty, because as much as Cam Ward is a wild card, I'm not going to call Spencer Rattler a wild card, because Spencer Rattler has been playing, is decent. Can I say decent football? Is that is too generous, is it? Yeah, better than expected football. That's a good way of putting it. He's playing better than expected football. Rashid Shaheed did catch a long touchdown, which we have been waiting for. And you're willing to target him this week against the New England Patriots.
Yes. This one I'm going for the home run. I played it safe with Swift, And I'm taking the chance with Shaheed on this one. I think because of bye weeks, and granted, it is only Houston in Minnesota. Like I said, though, with the fringe starter running backs, I feel like you're going to be looking at Rashid Shaheed and guys like Ramondre Stevenson and maybe even like a Chase Brown, Alvin Kamara. And you're like, man, what should I do? So on the principle of just who has the higher ceiling, I would say start Rashid Shaheed because I think they all have similar floors. So let me just say this. If you are expecting Rashid Shaheed to be a target monster this week or to lead the team in targets, you're not going to get that. I highly doubt that's what's going to happen. But what you will get is a great matchup for the best receiver on the Saints against man coverage this year. The Patriots run man at the 6th highest rate so far this year. They are allowing some of the most yards per coverage snap and coverage target, according to PFF. So for a big play guy like Rashid Shaheed, take advantage of man coverage. Now, here's the other caveat. Christian Gonzalez is back in the lineup. I'm expecting more of him to kind of follow Chris Olave than him to follow Rashid Shaheed. So does that make it a little more complicated? Sure, whatever. I feel like there's a lot of nuances that we could discuss with Rashid Shaheed. But I'm willing to take the chance because I think the ceiling last week was a great reminder that the ceiling is still there for a guy like Rashid Shaheed. And when there's a matchup like this against New England, there's at least a better opportunity in my eyes or better chance of getting another big play. And if that happens, it hits. But I will also admit the floor is still pretty low. There's not a boost in the floor for Rashid Shaheed after last week.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed is the quintessential. If you are going up against the number one juggernaut in your fantasy league this week and you are currently projected to lose by like 20 points, this is when you throw Rashid Shaheed into your lineup to try and close that gap, right? He may not be projected as many points as, say, Chase Brown, right? But could he easily outscore Chase Brown if Chase Brown gives you another 9 and Rashid Shaheed catches another 50-yard touchdown in this? I mean, there's the equalizer right there. That's all you need. So Rashid Shaheed, I think, if you are trying to swing for the fences, Cameron, like you're trying to close a 20-point gap against the number one juggernaut in your league, I could see where someone would actually flex Rashid Shaheed this week.
Yeah, and he honestly feels like if you were playing JMO last year, he is probably about
Walmart
a guy,
JMO.
kind of, but he's on the same pace for essentially the same stats that JMO were last year. He's on pace for about 55 receptions, just a little bit under 1,000 yards, so just a little bit shy, and he's on pace for a little bit over 6, almost 7 touchdowns. So he's genuinely playing like JMO was last year. And so if you were able to kind of stomach that last season, I think you can roll him out this year. You're understanding that, hey, I might get 3 catches for 42 yards. I also might get 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. And that's pretty much your range with Rashid Shaheed. And like you said, Lucas, I think that's the perfect example. If you need points and you're like, I'm not going to win without points, he's the guy you throw in. Because at the end of the day, he probably still going to get you 7 to 8 PPR fantasy points, but he could get you 15 to 20.
Yeah, 100%. One guy who will get you fantasy points, and I think should absolutely be a lineup block going forward, Stephon Diggs, same game. Over the last 2 weeks, since Stephon Diggs has become the Patriots wide receiver 1, he is leading all wide receivers in targets per route run with 25 plus routes. He's being targeted on 49% of his routes. That's a stupid number. Diggs is also running 6.33 yards per route the last 2. Over 6 yards per route. That is clearing away the best of all wide receivers over the last 2 weeks. Wide receiver 8 expected fantasy points per game as well if we want to put icing on the cake. Like, we have now entered weekly wide receiver 2 territory for Steph Diggs. This is not a matchup play. The Saints aren't like a great matchup, but they're definitely not a bad matchup. This is how good Drake May is playing right now. He's become Drake May's number 1 target, Stephon Diggs. He's just flat out a guy who needs to be in your lineup now. Don't look at him and be like, well, Steph Diggs on a hot streak or Calvin Ridley this way. You play Steph Diggs. because he is clearing away the Patriots wide receiver one now. We fit that territory. The slow start to the season, recovering from the ACL, that has seemed to kind of run its course already. So, like Steph Diggs, lineup block, you're playing him every week going forward.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add to that. 7 targets, 12 targets last 2 games, 100+ yards. I don't know why you would be worried about that necessarily stopping against New Orleans. Drake May's been playing well, and he's going to throw it to Diggs.
On the road, could get a little bit testy, maybe. That's the way I'll put it. But this is a Patriot team that's just been playing too well recently, Ty.
Yep. Like you said, Diggs led the team in routes of the receivers. At least Hunter Henry still ran the most routes last week, but he ran the most routes of receivers last week. So when he's on the field, and again, the 49% stat is the proof that you need. Bonkers.
That is bonkers.
So it's almost like Drake May knows that like Stephon Diggs is really good at the football. And so when he's on the field, he gets open and that he should throw him the ball. And that's what happened last week.
Like crazy concept. Just a crazy concept. If Steph Diggs is open, good at running routes and is open, hey, just put the football his way. He might be, I don't know, clearly the best wide receiver you have. We don't need to make this one hard. You fire up Steph Diggs this week. Wide receiver sits Cameron, Keon Coleman. Ever since week 1, people have always kind of like flirted with the idea of putting Keon Coleman in their lineups. But I mean, really since his 20+ point week in week 1, it has just been all downhill.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we talk ourselves into the fact that he could be like a Rashid Shaheed, where you're just waiting for the big play. I just think we're going to be waiting a long time. I wanted to believe in Keon Coleman, and I've been watching, and he's the same player we had last year. Falcons are really good against the pass, or not really good, but pretty good against pass. I think they're allowing I know they're allowing the 6th lowest points to fantasy wide receivers right now. And so I'm just not going to test it against, you have, and at the end of the day, that's what it is with the Bills. You have Josh Allen and James Cook. So it's kind of hopefully one of the wide receivers scores a touchdown. They're fantasy relevant. And I don't really want to hope that Keon Coleman does that this week, because it's inconsistent at best. And I'm just not betting on him this week against Falcons.
4.1, 3.5, 6, 8.3. That number has gone up each of the last, 2 weeks in half PPR formats for Keon Coleman, but not a player that I'm all that interested in. Starting this week, Ty, anything you want to pour on top or shake up?
When Buffalo is bottom 2 in pass rate and neutral pass rate, there is just not enough ball going around to feed all of the pass catchers. And it seems like Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir are ideally Josh Allen's targets. So Keon Coleman is kind of fighting for scraps here.
I was just going to say I would rather play Dalton Kincaid than Keon Coleman this week, even though the Falcons are stingy against tight ends as well. Dalton Kincaid has been the far more effective player this year, though, than Keon Coleman. We'll keep it simple at that, Ty, because we'll go back to the Green Bay Cincinnati matchup here. I get why you say sit Romeo Doubs. I kind of view him like a Rashid Shaheed this week, though. Could you get the big play out of him? Could you get the touchdown out of him to make him a flex-worthy play? I'm not saying force Romeo Doubs into your lineup. I guess I just feel like net neutral on Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, so this is more so kind of talking to the crowd of people that remember what Romeo Doubs did in their last game before the bye against Dallas, where he scored 3 touchdowns, and they're like, maybe I've got something here. It's still a bit of a boom bust risky play for me this week with Romeo Doubs. Not gonna lie, this could backfire on me, and we get another 2 touchdowns, or we get the big play like you said, and then it's like, oh gosh, why did I bench him? It's just my way of saying there's no way of knowing that we're ever going to get a similar game like we got against Dallas, or the big play, because this Packers receiver room is just way too hard to predict. If you guys had to guess how many percent or how much of Romeo Doubs' fantasy points have come in the red zone this year, how much would you guess?
Oh, gosh, based on 13 receptions for 179 yards. I mean, we can do quick math on that. You're doing full PPR formats?
Full PPR, or half PPR, excuse me, half PPR.
Well, okay, so that's over 50% then.
Yes. So Romeo Doubs, all of his points are coming in the red zone, not necessarily between the 20s. So I'm willing to take
50% if it's the red zone. Golly.
Yes, red zone. So I'm willing to take the chance that, again, the red zone production isn't really going to be there this week. He has 4 catches in the red zone. He has 4 touchdowns. So every time he catches the ball in the red zone, he goes for a touchdown. My concern lies again with the team that this team is coming off the bye. So do we get more Matthew Golden now? Do we get more Stevion Williams somehow? Like there is so much influx here with this Green Bay receiver room coming out of the bye, and the possibility that the red zone opportunities fall to Josh Jacobs, fall to Tucker Kraft, fall to a different receiver. I think there's too much risk here to say that, yeah, I'm going to take the chance on the boom week with Romeo Doubs, because I think there is too much bust potential here for Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, again, the matchup in my mind is still just like too good to, but you come back and say, okay, am I really saying that about Romeo frickin' Doubs though? What I saw Hayden Wings put out a tweet this week with one of his sicko charts, as he always does. He's like, I dare Matthew Golden to just drop a 50-yard touchdown on us this week. And I'm like, you know what? That might actually happen though, fresh out of the bye week. So Cameron, I don't know where you're at. I feel no need to force Romeo Doubs into my lineup, but I'd also be lying if I sat here and said, it's not that I don't think he could find the end zone this week. I think he totally could.
Yeah, my thing with Dobbs is the difference between him and Shaheed is Shaheed has that upside that you're looking for. Dobbs in his career has 7. He's going into his 4th season. He has 7 games with more than 4 receptions. He has 2 games with more than 80 receiving yards.
Yeah.
You just don't have that same upside. Like Rashid Shaheed last season before he got hurt had more games with 80 plus receiving yards than Romeo Doubs has over his entire career. So you truly are banking on the touchdown, and I'm not going to bet on that. And I'm also, like you said, I think Matthew Golden's more than likely going to be more involved in this game coming out of the bye. They were trying to get him more involved before the bye. Now you have a whole extra week. So I'm not overly interested in Dobbs right now.
Now, Ty, before I get to my sit of the week, I want to remind people last week that my sit of the week was Chris Godwin. Ty, do you want to fact check me quick? How many points did Chris Godwin have in comparison to Chris Olave last week? There was a Canes bet, if I recall.
I will say I listened back, and at first Ty did bet me on JMO, and then after I said, "Hey, we'll do JMO," he said, "I never said JMO," and then changed it. And if it would have been JMO, I would have won. So that's all I'm saying. He backed out.
Yeah, but go back. Run it with Chris Olave. That's what the Canes bet was on here. That's what I'm curious about.
JMO.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I think you're just trying to make something up. You're just trying to cope a little bit. Maybe drink some copium. Godwin had 4.1 fantasy points to Chris Olave's 9.4.
Oh,
doubled. He doubled it.
And you still lost your fantasy week.
I gotta Canes meal out of it though, brother. I ain't too mad.
Lucas can transfer his last one to me to you. So Lucas, you owe Ty too.
That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm just transferring the Canes meals IO at this point. I'll get to my wide receiver sit here. We're sticking in the Packers Bengals game here. I don't have any interest in T. Higgins, unfortunately, because Cameron, you named it up top. The Flacco trade, at least for this first week in my mind, it feels like it's fool's gold, right? Again, we like that Flacco's a gunslinger, but you named it. Since joining the Colts and rejoining the Browns, it hasn't been up to par from the 2023 Browns stretch that he had. Give me a week on this Bengals wide receiver room. The question that I'll maybe ask off of T. Higgins, because the production hasn't been there, right? Packers not a great matchup for T. Higgins, 4th fewest yards to wide receivers this year, fresh out of their bye week as well. But could this offense consolidate enough this week to only featuring less tight end usage and really only featuring like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown to make this look like a bad pick? Like, that's the only thing that I'm sitting with here. And I'm like, could they consolidate enough for T. Higgins to like squeak out a top 30 finish this week?
Maybe, but Packers are only giving up 130 passing yards or receiving yards to wide receivers so far. They give up 66 receiving yards to wide receivers when Joe Flacco was playing. So I'm not overly concerned that even if they do consolidate, it's going to be some massive breakout week. Obviously, the concern is it is T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, so it's similar-ish. Not quite the same for me as Derrick Henry. But if you are going to bet on 2 wide receivers in a bad position they could break a long touchdown, these 2 are probably the 2 that could do it.
Ty, any I don't want to say concerns on your end. It's one of those where I'm like, I recognize Joe Flacco is going to be a better thing than Jake Browning moving forward. But again, for this first week against Green Bay, fresh out of their bye, Joe Flacco literally like coming in and starting for this team on what, like 5 days with the Bengals. It's just one of those where I'm like, you can get excited, but I don't know if it's actionable for T. Higgins at the very least, like right now in this moment.
What would you say is T. Higgins' like calling card? Like what is his specialty?
I mean, jump balls.
ball.
Go give him jump ball
balls.
down the sideline. Let him go up and get one for you. Find him in the red zone.
Downfield shots.
Yeah, right.
You want to guess where Green Bay ranks in terms of shell coverage this year?
They got to be towards the top of the league, I imagine.
Really high or really low?
They are 7th.
Yeah, they got to be towards the top of the league. Now when you got Mike,
so,
right?
I'm not gonna say that like it's gonna completely take away the downfield shots, but it is incredibly more difficult to get those kind of plays against shell coverage. So the quarterback upgrade is nice.
Right.
I just give it a week. Give it a week with T. Higgins just to see exactly what it's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah. If people want to play T. Higgins, I get it. If you want to play him out of excitement, I get it. I just think that's kind of walking yourself into a trap, unfortunately. I'm open to T. Higgins making me look stupid, but give me 1 week on T. Higgins before we get there. Let's move on to the streamers here, fellas, to close out the show. Actually, before we do, I want to make sure that people know that we do go live on Sunday mornings before kickoff to answer all of your start sit questions. So if there's a player we didn't talk about here, or you're debating between one of these players and someone else on your bench, come join our live on Sunday. Hit that subscribe button, turn the notification bell as well, so you can be alerted as soon as we go live to come and answer, have your questions answered by one of us Sunday morning. Let's move on to the tight ends and quarterback streamers here. Cameron, thanks for making me your stream of the week, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. This Ravens defense is still banged up. They still stink. They've given up 171 points in 5 games.
Matthew Stafford, by the way.
Yeah. And Matthew Stafford, if I'm going to bet on any quarterback to throw 3 touchdowns this week, it's probably this guy. The passing attack's been awesome so far between Puka, Devontae. I mean, even getting Kyron involved in this last game in the passing attack. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to bet on him scoring touchdowns and putting up yards against the Ravens defense that is Swiss cheese at best.
Matthew Stafford currently the quarterback 6 overall in fantasy football this year. Getting it done through the air, Ravens secondary likely still going to be banged up going into this game. Ty, Jordan Love rostered in over 80% of leagues, but great matchup here against Cincinnati to take advantage of.
Yeah, I fully recognize that Jordan Love probably isn't available in your leagues, but if you're staring down like Jordan Love, Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, take this as your vote of confidence again for Jordan Love. Matchup is too good to pass up. And it may sound a little contradictory that I said sit one of his receivers, but start the quarterback. But that's the point, is that like we don't know exactly where the ball is going to go, but we know where it's coming from, and it's coming from Jordan Love.
Coming from Jordan Love. Go for it, Cameron. Hop in here. Ballsy. What?
I said bars.
Oh,
thank you.
We don't know where it's going to, but we know where it's coming from.
That was pretty slick. That was pretty slick. I'm with you. I think you can fire up Jordan Love, top 12 option likely this week. I will pick someone who's probably on your waiver wire. How about Mac Jones? I'll take Mac Jones against the Bucs. If Brock Purdy is indeed out, it's weird because he's like he was injured. He came back and played, but now it's like, okay, now he might be out for multiple weeks, but multiple weeks could only be 1 week. It could be 2 weeks. It seems unclear. My bet is that Brock Purdy isn't going to play this week. Obviously, if he plays, this prediction goes, this stream goes down the toilet, obviously, and you disregard it. But 21 plus points in 2 of his 3 starts without Brock Purdy this year. In both of those games, 21 plus points were top 10 finishes for Mac Jones. And you got Tampa giving up 20 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this year. That's the 5th most in the league. So like this could be a little bit of fun with Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield swinging the ball back and forth. We could get like a pseudo kind of Buccaneer Seahawks game like we did last week between these 2 teams. And if Mac Jones is going to be swinging the ball around the yard the way he has been in his 20 plus point outings, I think he's like, especially in 2 quarterback league, he should probably be slotted in as your quarterback 2 for sure. And if you're really, really desperate at the quarterback position, then I do think Mac Jones is one of your better options off the waiver wire this week. Let's wrap it up with the tight ends here, Cameron. He was, ironically enough, your stream of the week last week. It didn't make a change. The volume is increasing. Mason Taylor on a trailing Jets team in almost every single game just feels like a lock and load play at this point.
Definitely. I mean, the volume was crazy, and they're playing Denver, which means Pat Surtain is going to be on Garrett Wilson. And that means that the only two people that he can throw the ball to are Breece Hall and Mason Taylor. So I'm expecting volume to come back to Mason Taylor again in this one because he really has no other, Just Fields has no other options. So that 3.5 receptions, yes, sir. I will be taking that on Mason Taylor this week.
Yeah, that's set ridiculously. That's set really low. What's going on with that?
Denver has been decent, pretty good against tight ends, but that's also because like they haven't really like played any teams that kind of like feature a tight end like the Jets. So
right. That's where I'm at. Mason Taylor seems like I don't want to say a great play this week, but like you said, Cameron, the usage, it's not like it's all garbage time for Mason Taylor either. Like it's been early on in the game, like first quarter, I believe he had first quarter, I can't remember which, but he had 3 receptions like early on in the game. So it wasn't just like, all right, and here's 7 receptions in garbage time, Mason Taylor. Even though that's where like, hey, I think all Jets players are going to be racking up production in garbage time this year because that's where they're going to be. That's the game shape they're going to find themselves in. Like 9 out of 12 games, it feels like, if not 9 out of 10 games this year. Ty, you I don't hate the idea of Theo Johnson on Thursday Night Football. He's been a favorite to Jackson Dart since he took over as a starter.
And Darius Slayton is not playing, so it's Wandale and Theo Johnson. That's like there's nobody else. So I'm not expecting like an eruption spot or anything like that like he's going to walk away with like 10 catches or anything like that. But they're going to have to throw the ball to somebody. And like you said, Theo Johnson has been one of Jackson Dart's favorite targets since taking over. He's a 10-5 in usage with Jackson Dart. So granted, that's on the back of 3 touchdowns, but the point still stands. They're going to need to throw the ball, and it's probably going to be to Wandale or Theo Johnson in this one.
I'll close it out with Harold Fannin again. I know he's rostered probably in the majority of leagues, and I know he's still kind of having this like battle with David Njoku on who's actually the tight end one for this team. But caught a touchdown last week against the Vikings, and I could see this being very similar against the Steelers, right? Where if Dylan Gabriel has to get the ball out quick, it's going to go to the tight end position. Again, I've always said it. The tight end is a rookie quarterback, backup quarterback's best friend. So if Dylan Gabriel needs to get the ball out quick and Kevin Stefanski is going to make him try and fit it into tight windows or force him to push the ball downfield, that means it's going to the tight ends underneath, whether it be Harold Fannin or David Njoku. Steelers also giving up 16 points per game to the tight end position. That is seventh most, this year. So like Harold Fannin, it's a fine spot again. I'm kind of with Ty. This isn't an eruption spot. It's not like a ballsy Arondre Gadsden start that I suggested last week. If you were in a pinch, that was for the nasty boys out there if you were really in trouble. But no, Harold Fannin will keep it safe this week. I think he's a perfectly fine streaming option. We'll put a pin in everything there. If you want even more content from us, you can hit up our other socials, FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you are a YouTube person through and through, totally understand that. Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts. You can find us on over there. And that's like all exclusive content. It's nothing clipped from our show. It's entirely exclusive, separate content that we have produced for you all. So if you want even more content from us, even more thoughts on who we like each week, make sure you check out that content as well. If you want more content from us as individuals as well, I am at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlaw FFF from Cameron, Tyler_Plath from Ty. We'll be back next week. I believe we're doing some more trending or ending for one more week next week. Now that we kind of have we had weeks 1 through 4. Now we kind of get like weeks 4 through 6. It's kind of like another window. So we'll probably do that like in terms of a trending or ending. We'll have more trade targets. We'll be back with more starts and sits next week. So again, hit that subscribe button, turn the notification bell as well, so you know when those videos are up. And when you know we go live on Sunday morning, come join us as we answer all of your questions and get your lineups up before kickoff. We'll see y'all then. Deuces.